Welcome back. Being a reflective practitioner, I do nothing in terms of moving forward until I go back. And I try to encourage my audiences always to do the same. So with that said, any thoughts, any reflections, comments, concerns, questions, disagreement, anything, anxiety, anything that was said thus far?
Okay, I'm gonna try to say this the best way I can.
Yeah.
As a Caucasian woman who cares about her students, who understands what you're saying about the culture, how do I stay sincere and credible and try to teach them about those obstacles that they could face when I have never encountered them myself?
Yeah, I'm glad you raised the question. See, one of the things that I learned, and we've all learned this along our journey as professionals, is that we're learning from the students on a regular basis as well. So there's a lot, even though I'm born African American, I'm born in the African American community and so forth, there's still realities of a different generation that I'm just not privy to until I immerse myself into their world. So I learned a whole lot, particularly when I became a high school principal, from my students, because just the conversations were just different. I was the kind of practitioner that during the lunch breaks, I'm sitting at a table with students having conversations about various things. So I'm learning from them. So by learning from them, it enhanced my practice. So there are things about their lives that you don't know, and quite frankly, many of us in the room don't know. So we're just sitting back learning from them. And as we learn from them, we're able to position ourselves better to help them to navigate some of these issues. Because see, for example, since you brought it up, and I'm glad you opened that door for me, the isms of the world, particularly from the vantage point that you reference yourself as Caucasian woman, right? We're going to see those isms and obstacles through different lenses. And quite frankly, a conversation, you and I having a conversation for my own edification, right? In that subject area, that's going to give me insight. Because it's one thing for me and a bunch of black males to have a conversation about the isms of the world, right? Right. But it's another thing when I bring you in and explain it to you from my vantage point and I get feedback from you. Gotcha. Right? It doesn't mean I have to agree with you. Right. But at least I can have that conversation with you and learn what I'm dealing with through your lens, if that makes sense to you. Right. Right? So, and then by the same token, by us having that honest conversation, I can bring you into my world that you may not have familiarity with intimately, right? Because here's the thing, think about this, folks. When I do a full day presentation, it means that I have anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour where I'm not presenting. So I may be sitting at a table with teachers and we're just having a conversation about whatever. And one of the things that, sometimes I steer it this way, other times it just comes up, that if I'm in a school that's predominantly African American or has a large African American population, typically with staff, if you look at the breakdown of demographically of teachers, Caucasian teachers are 80% of the total teaching force across America. Black males make up 1.2%. Black women are about another 6-7%, right? So black folks are almost non-existent in education. You think about those conversations, right? It's like having the conversation with someone who is non-African American about that which I just said. A lot of times that's enlightening. But then when we get a little bit deeper in the conversation and talk about the reasons why, because there are reasons why, right? It becomes enlightening for that person who's not amongst that particular community, right? So it gives us an opportunity, it gives you an opportunity to come into my world But through the exchange of information, it gives me an opportunity to delve into your world. So you take that and apply it to children now. When we have those conversations, and I don't mean prying, just genuine, honest conversations that I really want to learn from my student. And ultimately, my student really wants to learn from me, it becomes instructive.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it becomes instructive. You get to know. Back in my teaching days, I had colleagues who happened to be white and was struggling with the students, which I was in a district that was 98% African American. Young teachers, what they expressed to me, Kafele, I'm struggling. I said, okay, let me help you with the struggle. Here's what we'll do. I want you to jump in the car with me tomorrow. And we're gonna go into the neighborhood. We're gonna knock on doors. Now, you know where I'm from. I'm up north, inner city, so it's a lot of buildings, right? We're gonna go to these apartments. We're gonna knock on doors. We cold calling. We're gonna eat dinner with these kids. Because I already had that kind of relationship with the parents. So if I show up, I know I'm gonna eat a meal, right? So come on with me, teacher. Okay. So teacher comes with me. We go into an apartment. Just being in the apartment is a different world from anything that teacher has ever experienced in life. Like I got this one teacher in my head right now as I speak to you. This teacher was wealthy, who wanted to teach in the inner city. This teacher drove a brand new BMW to work every day, brand new. It was 1993, 94, and she had a 94 BMW. She was 23 years old, fresh out of college, right? So we're talking about somebody who was coming from a family of a lot of wealth, right? As I learned from when I got to know her. So when I took her to the apartment, it was mind blowing. And I knew that from just looking at her. Like, I don't know what this is. She may as well have been on another planet. Like the thing that stood out with this particular teacher, and I talk about it in Closing Attitude Gap, there were mice running around in the house, right? She never saw a mouse before. So I grew up with them. But she had never seen one before. So she literally kept her feet up the whole time we were in the building, in this woman's living room. And then when we got back to the car, I talked about it. I said, yeah, you were really scared, weren't you? She said, yeah, I was. Man, I don't know nothing about no mice. I said, well, guess what? Let's suppose the youngster that's in your classroom that we just left is afraid of mice. Look where you are and look where she is. She's home. You're in my car getting ready to jump in your BMW and drive off to your mansion somewhere. And that kid, if that youngster's afraid of mice, there's no escape.
Right.
That youngster's in that building, in that apartment, right? So therefore now I'm able to say, so when you decide to yell at this youngster tomorrow, right, realize what this youngster's dealing with. And that's just a small piece of what youngster's dealing with. But now you were enlightened by being in that apartment yesterday. You learn, right? But the other point I was gonna make, those lunches when I'm doing these in-services. So I'll have a conversation with teachers. I can't tell you the number of white teachers that I've met who have said to me, Principal Kafele, my initial exposure to black people are my students. Prior to being a teacher, my relationship with African Americans was at a distance. I saw them in the mall, at the sporting event, right? On television, that type of thing. But we ain't sit down at the table and break bread, right? Because there was no context for it. So now here's this teacher, 23, 24, 25, 30, whatever it is, who's a first year teacher. And now here I am with this class full of African American fifth graders, sixth graders, seventh graders, whatever it is. That's that teacher's initial exposure. So the foundation that teacher stands on is all the stereotypes that he or she's been exposed to up to this point, right? So now all of a sudden I'm in a classroom with black children and I don't know a thing about them. See, so remember we talked about deficit children at a deficit. Teachers at a deficit. Teacher has to be hungry now. I want to learn all I can learn in a short period of time so that I can be an asset to these children, right? So it's difficult. You know, like myself as an educator, as a consultant, I can go anywhere. But as a teacher, all I know is being with Black and Latino children. As a principal, that's all I know. That's my world, right? So it doesn't mean that my skill set is not transferable, but it does mean I would be in an environment that I'm not accustomed to. You know, as a presenter, I'm very accustomed to being the only African American in a room of, say, 5,000 people, right? So I'm used to that. That's because that's normal in a lot of parts of America. You know, you go up to Montana and Utah and all those states up there. It's normal for me to be the only Black person in the room, right? So, but again, but watch this. Since it came up, I don't even share this that much. It was normal for me. But I had an audience where it was not normal for them, and it came out. I was in Kansas, and it was out. The only African American in the room was me. It was a whole district. I won't tell you what district. I did a keynote that morning in the gym, and then I did a breakout. Then we had lunch. Then they said, we want you to do a follow-up keynote. Okay. So I said, the reflective part, any questions, comments, concerns? A teacher yells out, "Hey, Principal Kafele," it's a teacher now. "You ever been with an audience whiter than this one?" I said, wow, this is heavy. And I had to respond to that. Now, the reason, at first I wanted to say to myself, she's speaking for herself. But it was too many people that laughed when she said it. See, so I said, okay, let me spend the rest of this hour addressing that question. Let me be instructive. So what I had planned to present, that went out the window. So now I had an audience full of folks in tears. So now instead of them leaving at the end of the day, I would say of the probably 700 that were in the room, about 400 of them lined up to all hug me, right? And to say, I'm sorry on behalf of my colleague that made that comment, right? And I said, it's all good. It was good for you and it was good for me, right? So, but my point is, I've been accustomed to that audience, but clearly they were not accustomed to me.
Which is why they feel comfortable.
Being in the room, which makes them comfortable in asking the question. See, so that's just like, how you doing? That's just letting you into like my space for a second, but to show you its transferability back to your space, right? In terms of the question, right? Good stuff. Good stuff. Anybody else? What's on your mind? What are your thoughts? Questions? Come. Yes, sir.
All right, this is kind of like a touchy subject in a way, but a lot of our kids that are coming to us are like 4 and 5 grades behind me. Okay, and that to me it accounts for a lot of the attitude. Because some of them have already decided they're so far behind they're not going to catch up. Mm-hmm. And so I mean I teach science and I can have those kids listening to me, saying stuff back to me like I want them to, but when it comes down to reading a question and answering it, they just shut down. And that's that. After 20 years, it's still frustrating me. And I just got any ideas?
I do.
All right.
In fact, let me find my clicker first. Let's go backwards.
And yeah, it's not. They're just victims of circumstance in a way, but it is what it is. And I want to help them, but in a lot of ways I don't know how to. When I'm up here in high school, but I don't really want to give them 4th and 5th grade work because they're gonna know that's what I'm doing, but that's really what they need.
See, somewhere along the way, see, this is the significance of this screen. See, I can look. It's easy for myself. It's easy for us to look at youngster's situation, youngster's surroundings, youngster's context, and say, that's on youngster. That's one perspective. There's another perspective that says, that's on me. See, if this, I'm just giving it context. If that youngster you're referring to before he got to you is mine, then I gotta go here. Do I have the will to be amazing? Now, I could talk the talk, but what's my evidence? If I'm putting kids out to the next grade level and they're being promoted, and I can't even read, what does that say about my statement? It's just talk. There's no substance there. It's just talk. So am I passionate about my students? No. Lip service, yeah. But not to the extent that I'm not letting you leave me until you can read. Right? And that's why this is so significant. See, so I think we have better context for the question now than we did before the break. Am I passionate about my students? I don't mean just you see the student and you like student and now I'm passionate about you. No, I'm so passionate about you is the mindset that I refuse. Like, look at this. I'm so glad Principal Whedon put this up. You must see yourself as the number one determinant of the success or failure of your students. I'll die by that one. Right? I wrote that on Twitter one day, and like a year or so ago, and I guess it resonated with somebody, and they converted it into that font. And with that back, I just wrote it as regular text and kept it moving. And then next thing I know, the thing is going viral, but that's not how I set it up. So now everybody kept posting it when it got that background and that font, because apparently the words resonated with folks. So I'm saying here, when you and I are in that classroom with young people, in school with young people, the attitude must be, I don't care about them variables out there because I don't have any control over them. I don't have any influence over them. But when you come into this space here called a classroom, oh, I got this. See, that's an attitude. That's a mind. You walk into this space and my name happens to be on that door, I got this. The number one determinant to your success or failure is me. Somebody, kids 4 and 5 grade levels behind and can't read, born with their brilliant selves, because that's what they are. Right? Ask them to rap a song. Oh, yeah. All right? Amen. Ask them to hear the song one time and spit it back to you. Right? So
sports or
I could listen to a rap tune 100 times and still can't recite it, right? So
ask them to do those dances.
Oh yeah.
Intricate dances.
Oh yeah. So the kid is brilliant. The kid
smarter what they want to be smart at.
So therefore and that's where you and I come in, right at that juncture, right? So where you and I convince youngster of the necessity of knowing how to decode those letters on that page, right? But it goes back to this. Am I passionate about them? Number 2, am I passionate about my craft of teaching? Like to what extent am I holding myself accountable for your success? Am I passionate about my own professional growth and development in those areas that I deem need improvement? So here I am sitting in a classroom and I got youngsters to the 2, 3, 4 grades behind in reading. Obviously I need some help. And I may not be a language arts teacher, it doesn't matter. I might be the history teacher, but I got youngsters that can't read. Right? I mean, the reading is transferable. It's not, it's interdisciplinary. It's not just the one subject area, obviously. So I still got an issue. But it speaks to who I am in that classroom. But then it goes further. Watch this. Skip all that. That's for another day. Skip all that. And we go right here. Watch this question. Are my students at an advantage? That's the question right there. Are my students at an advantage because I am their teacher? I wrote, I am their principal. Are my students at an advantage because I am their principal? I wrote a book called The Teacher 50, Critical Questions for Inspiring Classroom Excellence, and it's 50 self-reflective questions. This is the first question. Are my students at an advantage because, and I put an emphasis on that word because I am their teacher. Then subsequent to that book, as principal was just saying, I went on and wrote this other one for the principals, but I tweaked the wording. It says, is my school a better school because I lead it? Here's the question. Let me break this down for you. I'm actually where I was going after the restroom break, but your question tied right into it. Watch this, y'all. There are 50.6 million school-aged children in America. There are 3.5 million teachers in America, and there are over 90,000 schools. I want you to think about that youngster that needs you most. Someone would call them at risk. I don't use that language. Think about that youngster that needs you most. That youngster could have wound up anywhere on the planet, but that youngster wound up in the U.S. That youngster wound up in Alabama. That youngster wound up in Loachapoka. That youngster wound up in this school. In your classroom, that youngster could have wound up anywhere, but that youngster wound up with you. Now let's look at you. You could have wound up anywhere on the planet, but you wound up in Alabama. You wound up in the U.S., in Alabama, Loachapoka. Your classroom. You and that youngster, for whatever reason, converged on the same point. That's what happened, coupled with the 90,000 schools. Here's my question. Because you wound up in the same spot, is that youngster at an advantage because the youngster wound up with you? Said differently, if somebody else wound up in your place with that youngster, does that change that youngster's trajectory for the better? Now here's what I'm gonna say to you based on that. If there's anybody in this room grappling with the question, that's okay, that's normal. But if you're grappling with that question, you got between now at 11 o'clock and tomorrow morning to fix that. How you gonna walk? How the Auburn Tigers gonna walk onto the field and there's Roll Tide across the field, and they look at them and they like, yo, I don't know. I don't know if we could get them this year. That's you walking into a classroom looking at that youngster saying, I don't know. Because guess what? It's somebody else out here on the planet that's saying, give me a shot. Let me in there. I know I was that guy. I said, give me that school. Give me that class. Or that kid bouncing off your wall, give me that kid. I'm that guy. So in my mind, I'm just letting you into my head for a second. I'm not competing against anybody, but because the question is not one of competition. The question is one of confidence. So in my mind, as a teacher, as a principal, can't nobody come in here and replace me. That person hasn't been born. I'm that guy. That's not me standing up in the front of your room being egotistical and cocky. That's not what I'm doing. That's me standing in the front of this room saying I'm just a confident individual. I might even add I'm a prepared individual. Right? So based on my confidence and my preparation, whoever you're going to send in here for me to teach, I got this. There's not somebody else that's going to be better because the question is so relevant. Are my students at an advantage because, capital letters, underscored, italicized, I am their teacher? You got to know that. So therefore, what's the evidence See, what is it about being in your presence that youngster has more of an opportunity of success? See, that's that game film I was talking about before. Like I know right now, because I just did an ouch. I just stung somebody. I know it. You gotta go to that film now. And what's your film say? Are your students the ones that are gonna walk in here tomorrow? Is there something advantageous about being with you tomorrow? Because as I said about an hour ago, I don't know where it came from, but I own it now. Your presence is reflective of your essence. Is that how I said it? She wrote it down for me, man. She wrote it down for me. Your presence is a reflection of your essence. That's mine, y'all. That's the next blog post coming out in November, right? But that's what it is. Your presence speaks to what's in here. So you and I, like this afternoon when I'm on the plane, this evening, whatever it is, there'll be people like around me on the plane, and I would say about 50% of them are gonna have music on in their ear, and I'll see them bopping their head a little bit, and I'll be sitting there, and I'm not gonna have anything playing. I'm not gonna be reading. Some days I will, but I won't today. I already know my itinerary, and when I get on that plane tonight, what I will be doing to let you into my space, to be very transparent with you, I will be watching my game film of today. See, me being in this room right now, this matters. Like I'm not in here playing, right? This matters. So now I have to go to my film later on and say, did I give them did I share what I needed to share? Did I miss anything? Did I say something wrong? Was I offensive? I mean, all that kind of stuff. That matters. I take what I do seriously. So I got to go to my film. Was my audience today at an advantage? I mean, look at me being transparent and vulnerable with a camera running. Was my presence today, did it put this staff at an advantage? Or did I just come in here and waste their valuable time? And I might add in resources, right? See, that matters. And that's what I'm encouraging everybody in this room to incorporate or sustain, if you've already done it, into your practice. Did everything you do, everything you say as it relates to the youngster, it matters. So if I've got a youngster, this brilliant youngster who cannot read at grade level, years behind, what am I doing to rectify that? What's my role? But let's go back to that word we keep throwing around in here, credibility. If I don't have credibility in the eyes of that youngster, I probably will not make a connection with him. But see, credibility doesn't come with my title, you know that. Credibility, you and I have to earn that. We gotta earn it. Credibility comes through your presence. What message does your presence convey to the youngster? I'm coming right to you. Can youngster look at you and I and say, man, there's a living, breathing role model for me. May not be of the same racial, ethnic background, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There's plenty of folks that ain't African American that I look up to and admire. Todd Whitaker was one of them. You ever heard of Rick Wormley? Yeah. That's another one of my guys, right? Same scenario with Rick. He used to sit in them audiences. I'm going to be there one day. Now Rick is my dude, right? So I'm saying here, you and I have to earn that, because as we earn credibility, youngster can open up his or her arms. I'm ready to receive. I'm ready to take this in because you matter to me, right? Jump on in here.
I was going to say, is that credibility tied to the idea of they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care?
Absolutely, absolutely. that caring and compassion. You got compassion for these young people? You care about these young people? Do they know? Are they aware? Jump on in here.
Listen, you know, when we're talking about closing the gap, as a football coach, we got to say what we're saying, how we try to change the culture. You come into a program used to losing or something, you want to change the culture of the program. All right, change the culture, that's in big. You know, you got the community involved, you got parents involved, that kind of thing. You got to change the attitude, you got to change, that's changing the culture before you change the kids and the players' attitude. How do you suggest tying in when you're trying to change the culture, when you're trying to change the attitude of the community and parents? How do you suggest you go about doing that?
Great question. Let me get out of this screen and go over. Pardon me a second. A classroom equity framework / climate culture that I just don't have on the screen. Let's look at that. I'm glad you posed the question, and I'm trying to stay relevant as opposed to using my canned information. These two words, climate and culture, let's look at it very briefly. If I were to ask the room, define culture, more than likely, everybody in the room will have their own personal definition based on your experiences, based on what you've read, your research, etc. The word climate, same thing. So for me, I said, man, this word climate, there's a word that kind of stands out with me in terms of explaining what it means. And I said, the climate is the mood, M-O-O-D, the mood of the school, the mood of the room, the mood in the locker room, coach. So when you walk in your locker room, there's a certain mood. Right? It's in whether you influence that mood or it grew organically out of the students, it's there. Right? So like that place I told you when the lady yelled out from the bleachers, right? There was a mood in the room. And there was a mood that was conducive to her feeling comfortable raising that question. So the mood, then the culture, I say that's the lifestyle. That's how we're living in that space. So when you look at the various components, number one, I'm saying the environment. The environment comprises the culture. So when you walk into your locker room, onto your field, or this school, or any given classroom, what is the overall environment of this place? And is it an environment that has gone unchecked, or is it an environment that we said, I want to have maximum influence over the culture that accompanies the environment? Let me go further with that now. Think, for example, and this goes back to that word deficit. Think about that school, and you know, it could be yours, I don't know, because I haven't asked this question. Think about that school where we said at the beginning of the year, let's make sure that we spend a lot of time going over the rules. You ever heard that before? So let's go over the rules. So at the secondary level, which is what you are, that means if that's the culture, then if there's how many periods in a day? 8? 7. Any blocks? Okay. So that means potentially outside of lunch, on the first day of school or the first week of school, that youngster may be exposed to the rules for 6 periods of the day, potentially. Right? So the teacher in the first period, here's the rules. Blah, 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 blah. And here's the consequences. This is what's going to happen to you if you break these. So now that becomes, in large part, the culture that is being created on the very first day of school. that we're going to break down these rules. So now period 1. Now period 2, the rules are slightly different in that class. So now, but student has to sit there and listen to the rules. And here's what happens if you break them. And now I go to third period, more rules. Now, and on to the end of the day. Then the next day, teacher might feel, I need to go through these rules again. So now we bombard youngster with rules, and that's the culture we're creating. And with that culture, chances are good that youngster might rebel against these rules. So as I grew in this business, I said, I don't want the language of rules in my reality. Deficit speech is a reflection of deficit thinking. Remember that? I said, let's talk about our norms, our expectations, our values. Because rules, I do a lot of presenting in juvenile detention facilities, and they got rules and stuff there. I don't want to replicate that. I want school to be something very different. So I'm not talking about rules, but so I'm talking about norms, I'm talking about values, I'm talking about expectations, but I have influence over that so that I can create the macro, not the micro. Like think about discipline, right? Since I talked about rules. You go to a school, and like I was in a school in Texas about a month and a half ago. They got 650 students. The principal came to me and he said, you know, Kafele, we accumulated 4,000 disciplinary referrals last year. I said, how many students you got? He said, 650. 4,000 last year? 4,000. Now, that's a whole lot. So as we talk, everything was about discipline. Discipline. And that's why these referrals were being generated. Discipline is micro. I said, you got to go macro. Because like, let's say not me, but let's say somebody else, because if me, it doesn't matter. So let's say someone else, let's say you grew a pimple like right here, right? Like right in the center of your nose, right? And let's say that you are one who's self-conscious about your appearance. That's why I said if it was me, it's not a big deal. Like I'm just gonna show up, yeah, I got the pimple, let's move on, right? So, but that one that's like, oh my God, I got this pimple on the middle of my nose. So now they obsessed with it. Ointments, makeup, camouflage, Band-Aid, the same skin tone, or maybe they just kind of like pick at it, right? So now when they pick at it, they're prolonging its life. So ultimately, let's say it disappears. Here's the issue. It disappeared, but guess what? It's coming back. It's just a matter of time and a matter of location, but it's coming back. And here's why we know that. Because it was never dealt with. See, we scratched at it. We put ointments on it. We put makeup on it. We put a Band-Aid on it. That's all external. The issue of the pimple is internal. It's inside and it's manifesting itself as a pimple. Well, let's look at discipline. Discipline is the manifestation of a culture that needs immediate attention. See, when that youngster walks into that building and engages in those various undesirable behaviors, there's a culture in place that's saying, that's okay, you can do this. Because, like for example, people used to come to me during my principal years, hey, Principal Kafele, how come your boys like never sag? Like no one's pants are falling off. I said, because I created a culture of boys walking around the building looking like men. I said, males sag, men never sag, right? So I said, I'm not creating males here. They were born males, so there's nothing for me to create here. But they were not born men. I have to teach that. I got to build that. So we said, let's teach that without punishing it out of them. Let's just teach them the difference between being a young male and a young man. Let's model it for them. Let's bring other men into the building so they can see it. Let's ultimately put them in shirt, tie, slack shoes, and the belt through permission of their parent so that they look like they're the principal of the building. That's what we did. So now there was a culture in place that said we conduct ourselves. And I told you, despite the gang membership, it didn't matter. We changing that thinking too. We can't snatch him out. That's impossible, but we can change the thinking. So now he's walking into school as a leader, as a teacher, because we trained them to be the leaders of the incoming freshman class. If you were a senior, my freshmen were your responsibility, not mine. That's culture. So if you're a senior, that second day of school, first day of school is mine. I'm going to talk to all the students by grade level and whole school first day. That's my day. Second day, I'm going to take a chair. And my seniors will come in dressed as if they're me, principal. My freshman class will be in the auditorium or the gym, whatever it is. And one by one, they will walk up to that podium and they will salute. They will say hello to that class and say, my name is such and such, senior here at North Tech. And here are my expectations for you as students in this school. And then they go ahead and break it down. Their brothers are sitting right in the audience, waiting for the next man to come up. Once he finished, I told him, give me 5 minutes strong, 5 or less. Once he finished, they clap him up, his brothers. He takes a seat, next man up. My name is such and such, senior here at North Tech. Here's my expectations for you as an incoming student in this school. Imagine what that's doing for the culture of that building. I ain't say a word. I sat there and admired my students. I spoke yesterday, right? Now the girls, my young women, they doing the same thing. They're coming in looking like they the principals of the building. Now we say, let's go to the feeder schools. Let's go talk to them babies because they're gonna be here one day. So let's intercept them now while they babies. I need 25 young men to come with me on a school bus tomorrow. I'll pick them out. Need you to come to school dressed. We going to elementary school. We do it that way. We're creating culture, right? So now, with the parents, as you asked, in your regard, I'm going to go after them to be a part of us with intentionality, right? So despite whatever apathy may exist, I'm saying I can't be at the optimal level if I don't have parents involved, if I don't have them engaged. So I'm going after them with intentionality and the community. That I need you guys to be a part of us. We can't be an island. We need you to be a part of what we do. So the key word is the intentionality. Because you look at the word intentionality, its root intentional. As we all know in the room, the word intentional is defined. The definition means on purpose. So we say, let's on purpose engage parents. Let's on purpose engage community, right? So let's make them a part of what we do. You come up with what you're going to have them do, right? Whatever your game plan is, because it's one thing to get them here, but then what is it once we get them here? How do we utilize them? And you guys determine that based on the needs of your school, but that intentionality that we got to go where they are. See, that's why, like I said early this morning, I went and knocked on doors all the time. I'm going to you. I'm not waiting for you. I'm going after you, and that will get you here, right? So I got to move differently. I got to step outside of the box, because the culture is going to dictate everything that we do. So going back to what was said before about caring and compassion, that's going to be part of the culture. Right? So think about your guys, and not only are you coaching them up to be great football players, but you coaching them up to be great men, right? And when you got parents seeing that and participating in that, that just makes it that much sweeter, right? And as you guys probably know, a lot of times the football program drives the entire academic program at a school, because when we use football to drive pride into a building. And with the football team being the catalyst toward just building pride in who we are as a school community, football team becomes the anchor. All right, so we put that emphasis in the culture of the football team and climate, but in this regard, culture of the football team, it just snowballs. All right, so there's, and there's so much more that could be said, but I think I gave you like good stuff. Anybody else? Thoughts? Let me get off of this screen. Oh, here's what I was going to show you when I put this up. So the environment for learning, strand number 2, attitude towards students. Strand 3, relationship with students. Strand 4, compassion for students. And in strand 5, that whole discussion we had about relevance in instruction. I'm saying that these 5 strands make up this framework that I've developed called a classroom equity framework for closing the attitude gap. And we're going to talk a little bit about that before I get up out of here this morning. Any other thoughts though? Let me show you this. I'm going to show you those too, but this second question. Number 1, we said, are my students at an advantage because I am their teacher? But how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. But secondly, I got this powerful question. One could say that should be number 1, but I made it number 2. Why do I teach? Anyway. We don't need the anyway, that's just for emphasis, but hey teacher, hey leader, hey counselor, hey social worker, hey whomever, why do you do this? What's your why? What's your reason? I promise you folks, I promise you that there are people in this business that we call education. There are people in this business that cannot answer that question. I promise you. How do I know that? I told you I'm in 200 places a year. I meet a lot of people. I have a lot of conversations. And in those conversations, there are people who think they know that answer. But when you push them, let me give you the example, because I think I made that so abstract, someone probably saying, what is he talking about? When I hear somebody say, my why is to make a difference, here's my takeaway. They don't know why they do this. When I hear someone say, my why is to make an impact, I say, they have no definition for doing this work. Or here's another one that's very popular. I do this work because I love children. They don't know why they do this work. See, to make a difference, let me say this to you, because someone may disagree, and that's okay. To make a difference, guess what? Remember we said it's about 50.6 million teachers in America, 3.5 million teachers in America? Guess what? All 3.5 want to make a difference, 3.5 million. Ain't nothing unique about that. See, your why is your specificity. Your why is that thing that sets you apart. Your why is yours. It doesn't mean that there are not other people with a comparable or similar why. But it's that thing that, I forgot to turn that vibration off. It's that thing, let's turn it off. It's just telemarketers. They think they fool you by using the same area code where you live, right? We hip to that game, right? So anybody calling me from my area code where I lived, I would have their name stored in the phone, right? So your why, if you call me from where I live, that means I don't need to be talking to you, right? So, so your why, see, like that why, it's this thing inside of you that like eats away at your soul. It's this thing that keeps you tossing and turning at night. You can't even sleep. It's this thing that keeps your mind occupied, your why. And see, a lot of us, not you, but other places, we haven't like taken a seat somewhere in the corner and said, what's that reason I show up every day? But then I would beg to argue that at some point we did have one. See, what happens is, like we going through life, right? Let me demonstrate life. We just walking through life. And either gradually or suddenly something hits you and it said, I want to teach. It could be gradual, but some of us, it might be sudden, life circumstances, and like, my place is the classroom. But when it comes up, when it hits you, I want to teach, you don't put a period at the end. It's, I want to teach because, and whatever comes on the other side of that because, that's probably your why. See, for me, I told you how I grew up this morning. I said, man, I want to teach. I mean, I'm being literal with you. I want to teach because I have no interest in teaching math and science and social studies and language. I will do it because it's part of the job, but I want to teach because I want to go into that classroom and teach and model manhood for those boys, period. I only became a teacher because I knew, in being in Brooklyn, I was in Crown Heights. I said, I know that them boys are going to look like me. A percentage of them, a large percentage, are going to be going home to their mother and not their father. I said, I want to fill that void. That's why I want to teach. So I will be good in those subject areas, but that's not my why. That's not my why. Whether I was going to be good or not, teaching math was not keeping me up at night. Whether I was going to be effective or not, teaching science was not dominating my thinking. But whether or not I was teaching these boys what it is to be a young man or just walking the walk. Sometimes you don't have to talk it. Sometimes you just got to walk it. I said, that's the reason I'm getting up in the morning, walking into that classroom. So then I become a principal, right? I didn't change. I said, I'm walking in that building for 14 years because I want to build men. And I didn't neglect my girls. I want to build women. And we did that. We had the program in place. It just wasn't my why. It's something I was passionate about, but it wasn't my reason for living. You hear that language? My reason for living. It's 2019 now. I started this journey in 1988 as a 5th grade teacher. Guess what? My why hasn't changed. My workload has evolved. The topics folks ask me to present has evolved. But at my core, them boys still, I want to be that walking model of what it is to be a man. I was in East St. Louis 2 weeks ago. Y'all know East St. Louis, Illinois? And it's got its challenges. Principal said, talk to my boys. Would you talk to my boys about 30, 45 minutes? I said, yeah, do it. I said, Principal, I've been talking for about 2.5 hours. Let me wrap this up. She said, man, we didn't want you to stop because their focus was laser sharp. I said, yeah, I know. Because I sat there for them 2.5 hours introducing them to themselves. I love going to them juvenile detention facilities because I can tell the warden what the warden is going to say. The warden, when he meets me at the door, he'll say, hey, Kafele, give me like a strong 5 minutes with my boys. I can predict that. That's every facility I go to. Give me like a strong 5 minutes. So I know they're going to say it, and I know why. But I'm gonna go ahead and ask the question anyway. Hey, warden, why only 5 minutes? And I know what he's going to say. Because they're going to lose. They're going to lose you. You're going to lose them. You're going to lose them because their attention span is short, right? They engaged in some of the most heinous crimes in our city. They've done this. They've done home invasions, carjackings, this and that, which I don't even want to name. They've done all these things. You're not going to be able to hold them. I'm like, okay, warden, no problem. I'll give you 5 minutes. Then I'm looking at my watch, man, we up to like 90 now. And I look at the warden. Can I keep going? Yeah, keep going. The corrections officers, y'all good? Yeah, keep going. So then we finish. Here go the young men. How come we never heard this before? I said, I don't know. But make sure you hold on to what I gave you today. COs and warden, how'd you do that? I just put a mirror up. I introduced them to themselves. See? But then let's go deeper. Because I was walking in my why the whole time I was talking to him. My why. See, when you walking in your why, the work is easy. But see, when you walking in somebody else's why, the work is difficult. Right? Sometimes people say, Principal Kafele, man, I'm struggling. No, not sometime, a lot of time. I'm struggling. I'm discouraged. I don't know if I want to stay in this work. It's too overwhelming, blah, blah, blah. You've heard that before. I say, hold on, pump the brakes, teacher. It's not what you think. You've lost your way. You know why you lost your way, teacher? Because you lost your why. So now it's overwhelming because that which was the reason you entered this profession is not why you're in it now. You forgot about that. You left it 10 years behind. So now what you need to do, teacher, turn around and go back and get it. Go get your why. Go get your why. We'll use this as a prop. Go get your why and keep it close to the vest and walk in your why so that you don't lose your will and your way. See, when one loses their way and loses their will, it's probably because they lost their why. What's your why? What you getting up for in the morning to do this difficult work for? There's no work more challenging than this. This is it. This is it. But what you getting up doing? Have you defined it? Like there's a dictionary somewhere in this room. I see the encyclopedia. There's a dictionary somewhere. There's one right here. Let me get it. Matter of fact, there's a whole mess of them. I promise you, every word in this book, every word has a definition. I promise you. I'm not even going to look to check. Every word in this book is defined. Every one of them. Imagine there was a word in here, undefined, and instead of a definition, there's just a blank space next to it. Imagine that for a second. You know what that means? Not only does it mean that the word is undefined, but it means that that's not even a word. That's just a group of letters because by definition, it's got to be a definition. So with the definition, the word has meaning. So now, let's transfer this to us in our school. Imagine a teacher, a leader, a counselor, a social worker, or whomever walk into a school without a definition next to your name, which means purpose, because the definition is the word's purpose. Imagine somebody walk into a school, I'll put that back before it's over, with no definition next to their name. That means they just walking in there meaningless. You just in there. You just going. But there's no rudder to steer you. See? You gotta have that why. And that why may encompass many things, several things, but at the core is your definition, right? So with that said, I'm gonna skip all this because I see that clock. I got this explosive question to ask you. It says, to a closing the attitude gap, your attitude matters. And that was the questions for it. But I got this other one. Because, man, that minute hand is moving. I need, I don't even want y'all reading this yet, right? But I need like 6 hours on this question, minimally. Here's why, check it out. I know it by heart. Do I utilize, let me get out your way, a variety of instructional strategies that consider the different learning styles, ability levels, social emotional needs, in a student-centered, culturally responsive, culturally relevant, and equitable, capital letters, bold print, italicized, learning environment. Oh man, look at that, y'all. That's a lot there. In the interest of time, let me just focus on right here. Do I utilize a variety of instructional strategies that consider the different learning styles? Put a question mark right there. Forget about the rest of this. Hey, somebody in the room. You walk into a typical classroom in your school. Are the various learning styles considered? thereby different instructional strategies that are observable in that classroom. Let me give you this example I use from time to time. You got Principal Kafele at my age now, sitting down somewhere in a hotel room watching a cable news show. It's a 5-minute segment between the commercials. It's rapid fire. There's a host in the studio. And then you got the panel who's in different locations, so they're in a box. You know, everyone got their box. You got the picture? So you got like 3 or 4 people in a box of their own, and then you got the host. They throw a question out there. The person in box 1 got a rapid fire answer. Boom, 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 boom. The person in box 2, boom, 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 who sounds very different from the person in box 1. The box 3, boom, 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 boom. Box 4, boom, 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 boom. Box 1 and 4 now want to debate one another. Boom, 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 boom. They're going at it. Principal Kafele is sitting on the edge of the bed watching this. And now number 2 jumps in. Boom, 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 boom. Number 3, boom, 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 boom. Now they going at it. Boom, 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 boom. Now the host says, he looks at his watch, he realizes, well, they're in his ear, the producer, it's time for the commercial. Number 4, wrap this up. What's your final thoughts? Boom, 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 boom. Principal Kafele is watching this thing. And then he goes into reflective mode, because I keep saying that to you guys. Okay, Kafele, what'd they just say? I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, if you gave me a test on it, I guess I could get like maybe a D+, C- at the best. But I don't know what they said. Let me tell you why. Do I utilize a variety of instructional strategies to consider the different learning styles? Question mark. Watch this, y'all. You know when you travel internationally and you call your phone carrier, you tell them you want a phone plan, an international phone calling plan, right? So now, when you land, you turn on your phone, right? Watch this. And your phone, it starts searching. Cell phone language is called roaming. And somebody jump in here, it's roaming for what? What's it looking for? A signal. And where is it gonna find that signal? As it's roaming. Nearest tower. And if it finds that signal at that tower, watch what happens. You smile. Because now, yeah, you got bars, man. Now you overseas somewhere and you know you need that phone and you might not need it. You might just want it, right? Like you like me, I'm a social media junkie. So like I don't need the phone, but I do need my social media, right? So now you're like, okay, got it. It connected. Somebody said, what's that got to do with this? Watch this, y'all. You already know this. It's just a kid from New Jersey reinforcing this for you. Your brain, right? It's got like all this stored up information. You know that. Information going back to childhood and beyond, right? So you got all this stored up information. And now you watching that cable show, right? So now the stored information, it wants to make sense of the new information that's coming. So now, here's what happened. Watch this, y'all. Your brain starts talking to you. Like, matter of fact, let me just use my brain start talking to me when I'm watching that cable show. And it's saying, okay, Kafele, I got you. So now here comes that cable show. Here come that information. It's coming. And my brain is saying, okay, Kafele, I'm gonna work with you. But that information is coming so quick. And like some of what they're saying, I don't have anything previous in here. So it's hard for me. This is my brain talking to me. It's hard for me to make sense out of this new, because I got nothing to connect it with, right? But I'm trying. But I got these 2 deficiencies. Number 1, I got no prior information that speaks to these people, these dates, these events, these things that happen, all this stuff. I got no prior information, and plus it's coming so fast. I can't make sense out of it. So now the 5 minutes is up, and my brain says to me, hey, Kafele, I really tried to connect like the cell phone, but I just didn't have that. I didn't have the stored up information, and it was moving so fast, I just couldn't get it to connect. But Kafele, I got a compromise I can make with you. Change the channel to ESPN, because I got enough up there So, and I can connect with anything they talk about on them talk shows on ESPN. And so my brain's, so then I changed the channel. I said, oh man, yeah, look, my brain is working now. So here's the thing, watch this, y'all. Simplistically, that's how your brain works. That's how your I'll get rid of that in a minute. That's how your children's brain works. So imagine you in that classroom, right? And I get it. Imagine you in that classroom and that youngster with his brilliant self, her brilliant self. But I'm not processing because you're not speaking to the way my brain processes information. Youngsters saying without saying, hey teacher, wait a minute. There's nothing wrong with me. I just don't process it the way you're delivering it. Watch this, y'all. Let's go deeper. That youngster is young. Like this youngster's in 3rd grade. And this youngster is so young, I just can't express it the way the 58-year-old Kafele just expressed it. I can't do it. And because he can't express it that way, like the stored information, the making the connection with the new, the teacher's looking at young Jalil, young Principal Kafele. Man, he failing everything I'd give him. Just failing. Then he's failing my colleague's class. Let's call the parent. Parent, you see the pattern of failure with young, let's say Jalil, young 3rd grade Jalil. I know he didn't get to you yet, but this is what you're gonna receive. I think we would like to have the child study team take a look at him. Okay, parent says, oh, okay, well you guys know. So now they evaluate him. Make a long story short, young Jalil is in self-contained special needs classroom. You know something about, let me tell you about Jalil. Jalil is brilliant, y'all. The issue wasn't Jalil. The issue was his teacher. Jalil's teacher did not know how Jalil his brain was processing information, and we thought there was an issue with Jalil. I got this friend down here in Alabama, Craig Boykin. Y'all know him? Yeah. You know Craig? That's my dude. We talk every day, almost. And he was in special ed. Well, he got a bachelor's and 2 masters and getting ready to get that PhD now, and he's a national speaker. I met him on the speaking circuit. He's from Montgomery. But you got all these young guys and women that wind up in this environment that they don't belong. Did the instructional strategies consider the different learning styles in that classroom, right? But then to go a step further, let me get rid of that box real quick. Watch this here. Toward creating a climate culture of excellence, equity matters exponentially. So you look at that classroom, and is that classroom, is the methodology from the teacher equality based or equity based? Is it an equity mindset or is equality mindset? What do we have there in that environment? So let's take a look with these few minutes we got. I didn't notice that there. You got some of my quotes on them. Man, I feel special down here. So, hey, here's that teacher that said, man, I love these kids. I love my scholars so much, I would never, ever discriminate against any of them. What's good for one is good for the other. What I give one, I'm giving the other. I love you all. Youngster here said, man, teacher's good to me. Teacher gave me 1 crate so I could reach that apple. But because I can reach that apple, that means I can eat. But because I can eat, that means I can live. And because I can live, there's a higher probability that I will survive. Man, I love Miss So-and-so. But the other student said, but I got the same crate, but I can't reach the apple, which means I can't eat. I can't live because I can't eat. How am I going to survive if I can't eat? But then the other youngster said in that equality-based classroom, man, I can't reach it either. I can't reach it. I can't live. I can't eat. I can't survive. How am I going to survive? But that teacher has that equality mindset. What I give one, I'm gonna give the other because I love all my students. Right? It might be that classroom that we talked about before where the instructional strategies don't meet the way the youngster processes and makes sense out of information, right? So in this classroom, because I'm using this figuratively and literally simultaneously, 2/3 of the students in this classroom may not live long based on the instruction and learning that happens in that classroom every day. Hey teacher, does the instruction and learning in your classroom increase the probability that youngster will live a long life? So that when I see the goal, I see it, it's right there. Here I come. Here I come. Hold your horses. Oh my God. What am I going to do? There's a barrier in front of me. How do I circumvent this thing? See? Are you giving me instruction and learning that will teach me how to navigate whatever challenges, whatever obstacles, whatever isms may exist? But on the other hand, skip all this because we ain't got time. Go right here. Look here. This teacher said, nah. All 25 of these youngsters are different. I got to perform a juggling act. I know it's harder. I know it's more. I know it's difficult. I know it's challenging. But I got to meet these youngsters where they are. So I still have the one youngster that only needs the one crate, because his experiential background was a little bit different, which made him that much more ready to come to school. So I only need to provide him with the one crate. But I got this other youngster who came with a different level of readiness, and I got to provide two in order to reach the same goal. But this one here, I got to give him three. I got to give him more of me toward reaching the apple so that he can eat, live, survive. But just watch my finger right here. This youngster here, here's another youngster that has to be taken into consideration. Watch this here. You see that crate I just added there? Let me do that again. Right there. Look where it is now. See, these crates are on the surface. So we building crates from the ground up, right? But I promise you, there are some students that walk into this building that need that crate. Look where that crate is. It's beneath the surface. I promise you that youngster is gonna walk in here tomorrow. That youngster whose basic needs are not being met. And you may or may not be aware of that. So the question becomes, what you got for him or her? What's in place? And I don't mean at the building level or the district level, but I mean the classroom level. What's in place for this youngster who, hey teacher, as important as this apple is to my living, I need a crate to get me to the surface. I'm not at surface level. My life is nothing like yours, teacher. What you got for me? Right? Hey, teacher, I see the passion you put behind preparing your math lesson and teaching it. But teacher, it ain't all that relevant for me, because I'm trying to get to the surface level. Y'all know that kid exists. The question becomes, what do I have for that youngster? Because of the realness that youngster really exists, right? So I'm showing you that to say, equity is one thing, But never lose sight of that youngster either. But this thing here, let me go backwards. The only place for that is in a museum. It's a relic from the past. It has no application today. Equity has to abound in schools, in districts, and in classrooms. It's got to, that we meet the youngster where they are. The interesting thing about equity, though, I think, I say this often, I called myself this equitable practitioner from day one, but had no language to apply it. So I didn't use the language equitable. And the word equity was typically used with home ownership, right? So here I was knowing that youngsters were different and I couldn't treat them the same, but I had no language to apply to it until this buzzword came along called equity. And you know what happens with buzzwords, they die out. So hopefully folks understand that as the equity word dies, the principles do not die. That you and I have to meet youngster where youngster is always. What are your thoughts, somebody, with these last couple of minutes? What are your thoughts on whether or not equity is your reality? Is equity who you are as the teacher in your classroom? What do you think? Oh, let me get out your way.
In my classroom, when they come to me, I teach mathematics. So when they come to me, I try to get them to understand. Let me know where you are, and let me pick you up from there. So regardless of what you have learned in the past, even though I might teach it differently, do it differently, if you haven't mastered, it's mastered. But let me pick you up where you are on this concept, and let me get you further along. So I try not to go back and reteach it a different direction, where it be confusing to them, because math is almost the same all the way through.
Yeah.
And I get my kids now to understand that math is nothing but a building block. So whatever you learned in pre-K, you still using it today. All we doing is adding on top of what you already learned. That's right.
That's right. All the way to the highest levels.
Right.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Appreciate you. Anybody else? What do you think? Equity and you.
What this makes me think of some students that I had in the past that I didn't know what was under the surface until they left me.
Yeah.
Because we don't always know.
Yeah.
Even though I had a great relationship, it may be the following year that they come back and tell me that their stepfather had raped them the whole entire year they were sitting in the classroom.
Yep.
And that we don't always know because sometimes they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
And until we go to that home, we don't tell them.
You're absolutely right. You know, it was interesting, and I guess I'll close out on this because I know what time it is. I keep talking about this young men's, I haven't given you the title, but Young Men's Empowerment Program is what that program was. And I just, maybe one day I come back, I'll be invited back and we break all that down. But we had a Young Women's Empowerment. And in the Young Women's Empowerment, matter of fact, do me a favor, don't record this one part, all right? Give you my contact information. Look at all that we didn't cover. Right, see all that? That's for next time, right? I didn't mean to do that. Let's put that back and go right here. Feel free to send me an email and request the PowerPoint as a PDF handout. I'll gladly send it to you. Go to principalkafele.com and click my email address. Don't ask me the email address because that's my vehicle to get you on the website. I call my website an institution of professional development because there's so much. It's not just a marketing site. There's just so much information. I got 500 videos on there from YouTube. I've got I think 50 blog post articles that I've written, articles and blog posts. I've got about 15 podcast interviews. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff there. So I want people to go on the website and take advantage of some of that information. And then here's some of the video channels. There's more, but that's the 5 I like most. And then if you're into Twitter and Facebook, or Twitter in this regard, then get with me. so that we can exchange information. I do a Facebook Live on Sundays. I used to do teachers first Sundays and leaders second Sunday, but my flight schedule is so crazy on Sundays that I'm just doing right now until I figure out a way to get teachers back in second Sunday. So if you're an aspiring school leader, you're a teacher leader, you're an instructional coach, whatever it is, join me on Facebook or Twitter Live on Sundays at 9 Central. If you're in church, then watch the archive when you get home. And then lastly, I'm an author. So check out these books: Motivating Black Male, Closing Attitude Gap, Teacher 50, and then the other 3 are the leadership books. And with that said, any closing thoughts? Anything on your mind before you have your lunch? But y'all having Chick-fil-A?
Not today, not today.
Okay.
We got a little bit of everything today.
Y'all doing it up today. Anything on your mind? Well, folks, I appreciate the time spent with you. I hope my time here was beneficial. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you back.
A couple of giveaways, a couple of staff members wanted to give you.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
And you can represent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can give you a t-shirt and cap.
I appreciate
sun off the head.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
And so you
You gave me an extra large? You gave me 2X. That's cool. I'll make it work. Appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you. Give me a handshake, sir. Appreciate you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Got another one. Appreciate you. Yes, sir. Thank you, folks. I wear all this stuff on social media when I do them Facebook Lives.
Like brand out there.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I want to thank you on behalf of our faculty and staff. This was an amazing presentation.
Appreciate
A lot
you.
of great information that we use. We're gonna continue to use them.
That's it.
Please take a picture of this right here, teachers. This is very important.
This is Straight Arrow News.